In the grand hall, bathed in opulence and extravagance, a young man named X held court from an expensive throne adorned in equally lavish armor. His demeanor exuded confidence, and his opulent lifestyle knew no bounds. He was so obscenely wealthy that he could procure anything he desired within the realm of the game, from equipment that rivaled the cost of a luxury sports car in the real world to potions that carried a price tag greater than a college education. Every acquisition was a testament to his insatiable appetite for self-assertion and the pursuit of becoming the undisputed king among players. In the beginning, his ascent to power had been nothing short of meteoric. With the unwavering support of his loyal team, they had achieved unparalleled success, reigning over the throne of king for more than 2 years. The virtual world was his oyster, and his rule was unchallenged, but all of that was destined to change in an instant. If anyone were to inquire about his days in the online game known as Lin Online, X would be overcome with a desire to deliver a punch to that curious individual's face, for his life had taken a sharp, downward turn, and the mere memory of those fateful events still filled him with a burning resentment. 2 years ago, his very own team, the individuals he had entrusted with his virtual kingdom, had turned against him, seeking to wrest away his title as the most formidable monarch. Even after the passage of more than 2 years, that lingering bitterness showed no sign of abating, and it seemed unlikely that it ever would. As he stood over the stove, idly wiping away imaginary grime, the rage he had thought he had buried resurfaced, his grip tightening on the rag. The friends he had forged alliances with in the game, the ones he had trusted without question, had betrayed him in a calculated and insidious manner. The age-old motivator had been the driving force behind their actions. Money. No one could resist the allure of his staggering income. X, the strongest monarch in the annals of Lin Online, had become the ideal target for betrayal. His former comrades had chosen to cast aside their bonds of friendship for the allure of financial gain, and they had orchestrated a meticulous plan to dethrone him. The coup had unfolded swiftly and without mercy. It was only after his in-game death and the subsequent loss of his precious belongings that the cold realization had set in. The game system had offered him a second chance, a rebirth in the nearest city, with the opportunity to start afresh. In that moment, he had learned a harsh and indelible lesson. Trust no one. His only reliable ally was himself. As he clung to his mouse, trembling with the weight of his realization, he made a solemn vow that he would hoard his wealth and regain his place at the pinnacle of the game. However, the path to redemption was far from easy. Countless attempts to rebuild his empire had ended in failure. The gap between his current level and his coveted goal seemed insurmountable, leaving him disillusioned and disheartened. Starting from scratch was a bitter pill to swallow, and the future appeared uncertain. With each passing day, X's determination grew, and he honed his skills with unwavering dedication. He knew that reclaiming his throne would be a Herculean task, but the fire within him burned brighter than ever. The scars of betrayal and the memories of his past glory served as a constant reminder that in this virtual world, he could trust no one but himself. And with that knowledge, he embarked on a new quest, determined to rewrite the history of Lin Online, and once again, ascend to the pinnacle of power. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is the best ability in Manhwa? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now back to the recap. As time passed during his reign as a monarch, the toll of the virtual world began to manifest in his real life. His once nimble fingers had aged and weakened, hampering his ability to control his in-game character as deftly as he once did. The interference from his old friends who had risen to power as monarchs themselves only exacerbated his difficulties. The enjoyment he once derived from the game had withered away, replaced by frustration and helplessness. It was a realization that slowly dawned on him. The time had come to relinquish his digital throne. He made the difficult decision to sell his cherished gaming account, using the earnings to establish his current store. Each day he toiled diligently, earning his keep through the sweat of his brow. Looking back, he couldn't help but berate himself for having so readily handed over his hard-earned income to his former friends. Regret loomed large, but there was no way to turn back the clock. All he could do was carry the weight of his past mistakes. At the end of a grueling day, he sighed with relief, his strained back demanding respite. He congratulated himself for a job well done as he finally relaxed, taking a moment to open the refrigerator and retrieve a cold can of soda. Seated at one of the tables in the center of his store, he stared into the distance for a few minutes, pondering the course his life had taken. Restlessness eventually overtook him, and he decided to switch on the television, expecting to catch the mundane evening news. To his surprise, two anchors were animatedly discussing the release of a new game. one that had been eagerly anticipated by players everywhere. The anchors announced that the game, Fate, was set to begin its official service the following day, opening the doors for players to immerse themselves in its virtual world. At first, our hero paid little heed to this news. His responsibilities in the real world consumed him, and he found it hard to muster interest in something as trivial as a new game release. With a sense of nostalgia, he finished his soda and contemplated how, if he were 5 years younger, he might have eagerly taken up the challenge. However, his indifference quickly turned to surprise when the news reported that renowned players were already expressing a keen interest in Fate. Notably, the War Machine Guild from Lin Online, his former team, had shown a strong desire to establish themselves in this new game. The anchors mentioned their nicknames, Kymus, Diesel, and Sauzarawas. The mere mention of their names sent a surge of anger coursing through him. Initially, he entertained the thought of joining the fray, eager to seek vengeance against those who had betrayed him. But as he cooled down, a sense of resignation washed over him. Over 2 years had passed since he'd walked away from the gaming world, and he now had a business to run, a livelihood to sustain. With a heavy heart, he lowered his head, realizing that his life had moved on, and the allure of gaming and revenge might forever remain a distant dream. Fate had dealt its hand, and he had chosen a different path. As the news anchors continued to sing the praises of the game, Fate, our hero desperately sought excuses to justify why he couldn't plunge back into the world of gaming. They lauded the game's endless content and the multitude of players already immersed in its virtual universe. However, a particular detail caught his attention. To enter the game, one needed a special device called a capsule diver. One of the presenters explained that these capsule divers could be purchased on the Fate website, and for those who faced any difficulties with the website, Fate's user support was readily available to provide assistance. This revelation sparked our hero's curiosity, and he immediately turned to the internet to gather more information about this intriguing device. As it turned out, the capsule diver was an advanced virtual reality device designed to provide a complete and immersive experience within the game world. Our protagonist had heard of virtual reality before, but in the past, it had always felt clunky and unnatural, particularly when it came to character control. However, the developers of this device claimed to herald a new era in gaming, where players could control their in-game avatars using their brainwaves, fully immersing themselves in the breathtaking game world. This information took our hero by surprise. It was a game changer, quite literally. The prospect of manual control, which had been a source of frustration due to his weakened fingers, would no longer be a hindrance. This was his golden opportunity to rise above his past, to conquer fate itself. With a confident smile, he clutched the now empty soda can in his hand, mentally taunting his future opponents to flee while they still could. He was poised to once again demonstrate the stark difference between a true monarch and a mere bunch of pretenders. Filled with newfound determination, he returned to his apartment with a sense of purpose. There was no time to waste. He decided to order the capsule diver immediately, believing that it was his ticket to redemption. However, his excitement was swiftly replaced by disappointment as he discovered that all of these outrageously expensive consoles had sold out on the very first day. The price of the device alone was staggering, amounting to a whopping 10 million units of the in-game currency. And if that weren't enough, additional services for a quick start would set him back several 100,000 more. Desperation gripped him as he pondered his next move, knowing that the next shipment of consoles wouldn't arrive for another 4 long weeks. The clock was ticking, and he couldn't afford to miss his chance to rewrite his destiny in the world of fate. Determined to secure the startup capital needed to acquire the coveted new generation console, our hero embarked on a month-long journey of frying chicken. Each piece of fried chicken would translate into in-game currency, an essential step towards his goal of returning to the pinnacle of gaming. He hoped that this new beginning would pave the way for his triumphant comeback. After weeks of grueling work and tireless frying, he finally accumulated enough in-game currency to purchase the cutting-edge console he needed. Every piece of fried chicken had become a stepping stone towards his redemption. The day arrived when he was ready to immerse himself in the world of fate. The console was unlike anything he had ever seen. It resembled a futuristic scanner more than a typical gaming device. He lay down inside the machine and donned a pair of special glasses, prepared to step into the virtual realm. As the system initiated, the space before him transformed into a sea of blue pixels, and a brilliant flash of blue light heralded his entry into this new world. He received the first notification, Login completed. Gazing up, he found himself beneath an incredibly realistic blue sky, the sun shining brightly above. His in-game character lay peacefully on a lush green lawn, and it felt as if he was awakening from a deep slumber. The sun's rays were so vivid that they temporarily blinded him, but he couldn't help but revel in the breathtaking beauty of this virtual world. Before he could fully grasp the magnificence of his surroundings, another information window from the system appeared, prompting him to complete character creation and select a nickname. Our hero wasted no time deliberating. He chose the same name as before, X. Despite the overwhelming newness of this virtual world, he remained steadfast and determined to uncover the truth behind the legendary Gourmet King, a name he had never heard before. However, his first order of business was to satisfy his hunger. He accessed his inventory and selected a piece of rye bread, which promptly materialized in his hand. Curiosity got the best of him as he wondered if this bread, crafted by a virtual farmer, could possess hidden flavors. Without hesitation, he took a bite. The bread felt soft and warm, as if he could taste the care and attention the virtual farmer had poured into growing the wheat. To his surprise, the bread had an otherworldly taste, beyond anything he had experienced before. What's more, a notification informed him that the essence within the rye bread had been absorbed by his body, increasing his stamina attributes by 30 points and his strength by 2 points. It was a revelation that left him astonished, and he couldn't help but marvel at the immersive nature of this new virtual reality. The line between reality and the game world had blurred, and he was ready to embark on a journey that would reshape his destiny and just maybe reveal the secrets of the enigmatic Gourmet King. With the newfound ability to boost his attributes by consuming various foods, our hero felt a sense of power and advantage over other players. He couldn't help but smile, realizing that he had underestimated this class before, as it now opened limitless possibilities for him. His earlier criticisms seemed misplaced in the face of the incredible benefits it provided. However, he had run out of rye bread, prompting him to explore his virtual surroundings in search of edible items. While walking along the edge of the forest near the neighborhood, he noticed bright red fruits on a tree, red berries. Thanks to his heavenly palate skill, he gained a stamina and mana boost as soon as he tasted them. The red berries were incredibly sweet, tantalizing his taste buds. Curiosity piqued. He wondered whether eating the same berry again would provide additional bonuses, but unfortunately this was not the case. It seemed that variety was the key to maximizing his attribute gains. Turning his attention to nearby creatures, he set his sights on a group of bighorn deer. They appeared oblivious to the fate that awaited them, as their succulent appearance made them tempting prey for our hero. Since consuming the same food multiple times yielded no further benefits, it was time to diversify his menu, with deer as the main course. Drawing his sword and executing a precision strike, the deer sensed the impending danger and attempted to flee. However, it was too late, and our hero swiftly ended their suffering with a single blow. Now, he pondered what deer meat would taste like, and eagerly took this opportunity to find out. From the slain deer, he collected several items thanks to his skills. The meat was of the highest quality, tenderer and tastier than ordinary meat. However, due to its raw nature, it satisfied his hunger by only 50%. In addition to the meat, he obtained a soft deer skin of the highest quality, more valuable than the typical deer skin. Selling this hide to a merchant slightly increased their favorability toward the player. Moreover, equipment crafted from this hide promised to enhance dexterity by 2 or 3 points. Our hero was both pleased and surprised that from just one deer kill, he had acquired 2 rare items. With this rate of success, he could potentially earn substantial in-game currency by hunting these deer. Having finished his deer hunt, our hero returned to Narville Castle and visited the Street of Stores. Entering the store of the merchant Reuben, he cheerfully informed the merchant that he had brought a dozen deer skins for sale. However, Reuben's response was less enthusiastic. He explained that he couldn't offer a good price for the deer skins due to the high supply of this item from other players. It seemed that the market was flooded with deer skins, leading to a less favorable deal than our hero had hoped for. Our hero had anticipated the initial response from the merchant, knowing that many newcomers started their journeys with deer hunting. So, without hesitation, he placed 10 soft deer skins on the counter. The merchant's demeanor underwent an abrupt transformation. His eyes widened in astonishment as he examined the high-quality goods before him. He couldn't fathom how someone had acquired so many of these exceptional items. Eager to secure these valuable items, the merchant inquired if there were more available. Taken slightly aback by the merchant's insistence, our hero responded that he could bring more skins, but wished to determine the price first. The moment the topic of pricing arose, the merchant's enthusiasm dwindled. Awkwardly, he inquired about the price our hero had in mind. Our hero, ever the savvy businessman, deliberately named a high price, fully intending to engage in negotiations and offer additional terms to secure a better deal. He proposed that if the merchant agreed to this price, he would be willing to bring as many skins as desired in the future. To substantiate his claim, he produced an additional 30 soft deer skins, showcasing his ability to haggle, a skill he had honed over 2 years running his fried chicken business. The merchant, unable to resist the lucrative offer, eventually acquiesced to the price of 1 gold coin per skin. However, he did stipulate a counter condition. Our hero must return to the same store to sell any future deer skins. With the agreement reached, the merchant handed over 3 gold coins, marking our hero's first earnings in this new game. Afterward, he decided to take a leisurely stroll around Narville, contemplating his next steps. The idea of exchanging some gold coins for real money to support his real-life expenses crossed his mind. Additionally, he recognized the need to purchase a high-quality set of armor to enhance his in-game capabilities. However, he quickly realized that his current funds were insufficient for a top-tier armor set. He would need to continue acquiring valuable items and selling them to amass the necessary wealth. With this plan in mind, he decided to venture into the bison habitat at Narville Fields, intending to hunt oxen for valuable loot. As he arrived at the hunting grounds, he noticed another player who appeared to belong to the priest class. Watching the oxen, he couldn't help but wonder if reaching his goal of entering the top 100 in 6 months was even possible, especially without connections, talent, or substantial resources. The daunting challenge weighed heavily on his mind as he considered his path forward in this virtual world. As our hero continued his relentless slaughter of local fauna to extract valuable resources, the other weaker players around him appeared to have given up. They no longer seemed to be actively trying to level up, leaving our hero to wonder if he should follow suit and abandon his aspirations. Doubts began to cloud his mind. However, in the midst of his contemplation, his attention was suddenly captivated by movement ahead. Another player, dressed in novice armor, was engaged in a merciless massacre of the local oxen. The priest-class player couldn't believe his eyes, unable to comprehend how this armored newcomer could effortlessly dispatch so many oxen at once. The player's skill and confident movements were beyond impressive, sparking an idea in the priest's mind. The priest saw an opportunity to raise his own level by teaming up with this talented player. Forming a party with him seemed like his only chance to level up significantly, and he was determined not to let it slip through his fingers. He jumped off a small cliff and approached our hero, who had just slain the last ox. However, just as the priest was about to run toward our hero and shout to get his attention, something strange happened. Our hero inexplicably froze in place, and before the priest could reach him, a system notification appeared above our hero. In an instant, our hero began to vanish from the game world, leaving the poor priest with a deep sense of frustration. He had been so close to seizing his chance, but it had slipped away like a mirage. Tears welled up in the priest's eyes as he lamented his bad luck. Meanwhile, our hero returned to the real world in his apartment. He opened the lid of the console, which resembled a sarcophagus, and leisurely climbed out. For the first time in hours, he removed his VR goggles, still puzzled by the memory of someone calling out to him from behind just before he exited the game. He wondered if it had all been real or just his imagination, but he quickly dismissed these thoughts. After taking a shower and consuming a quick meal of convenience food, our hero filled the biogel container, ensuring he was fully prepared for his next venture into the game world. Before diving back in, he decided to read up on the existing ranks within the game. He had heard that ranks held significance, and he wanted to understand which rank was the most accessible and easiest to achieve. Armed with this knowledge, he could better plan his journey and strive to reach new heights in this virtual realm. Our hero, now equipped with knowledge about the game's ranking system, decided to make it his mission to achieve a high rank. According to the information he gleaned from the Fate Tip radio on his phone, obtaining a rank required hunting 100 monsters that were of a higher level than players. However, there was a catch. Killing monsters in a team didn't count towards this goal. These conditions seemed tailor-made for our hero. For him, soloing 100 monsters was a task he considered easy, and he wore a confident smile as he donned his VR headset, ready to immerse himself in the game world. He believed that this challenge would be a walk in the park for a former professional gamer like himself. The closest town to the Forest of Beginners was Narville Castle, a place with high walls that stood out against the surrounding landscape. Inside those walls lay a bustling town replete with stores, guilds, and quests, offering everything a budding adventurer could desire. Many newcomers gathered in the forest east of Narville Castle, hoping to collect their first resources by hunting and gathering. However, something peculiar caught their attention this time. A group of beginners stared at a clearing in front of them, their expressions filled with bewilderment. One of them remarked in surprise that the person in question had been at it for hours, leaving them to wonder whether it was a human or perhaps a bot. Another player chimed in, suggesting that it couldn't be a bot, since the game relied on brainwave recognition. Meanwhile, in the clearing, a horde of creatures known as Stupid Tubi, resembling a peculiar mix of an egg and a chick, scampered about. Unbeknownst to the observers, it was our protagonist who was ruthlessly exterminating these creatures hour after hour, with the singular goal of gaining experience and leveling up. Thanks to his unwavering concentration and relentless effort, he steadily progressed toward his objective, determined to achieve his desired rank in this virtual world. In the game, our hero had discovered various mechanics that facilitated his accelerated leveling. One such mechanic allowed him to regenerate his stamina, a boon for beginners. Additionally, after landing a certain number of hits, he could activate his passive skill, Swing, which enabled him to eliminate all the stupid tubies in the clearing at once. Utilizing this skill, he had quickly raised his level once again. Summoning the information window, he reviewed his characteristics and attributes. After hours of mercilessly hunting defenseless stupid tubies, he had reached level 5. However, his aim wasn't solely to gain experience. He also used this time to practice controlling his character more effectively, gradually becoming accustomed to its movements. Now, feeling confident with the controls, he decided to move on to the next hunting location. He knew he was a full month behind the other top players, and he needed to catch up as quickly as possible. As he ventured onward, he came across another clearing bathed in the warm rays of the setting sun. He decided to pause here, having ventured quite far from the forest of beginners. In this new clearing, he immediately spotted a group of deer, realizing that this was precisely what he needed. Drawing his sword, he prepared to hunt all the monsters he could find in this forest. He started with a hapless deer, dispatching it with a single precise swing, and gaining significantly more experience than he had obtained from hunting stupid tubies. However, his triumphant moment was short-lived. After killing the deer, he received a notification that his hunger bar had dropped below 10%. As a consequence, his character's movement slowed down, and his stamina regeneration ceased. Frustration welled up within him as he wondered who had conceived the idea of introducing a hunger system into the game. He hadn't expected to feel hungry so early in his gaming journey, and now he would have to constantly divert his attention from leveling to seek out food. Although he found himself in a place like Mount Yumgang, known for its abundant resources, he decided to check his inventory. To his relief, he found a few warm loaves of bread he had packed before setting off, providing him with sustenance for the moment. As he reached for the bread, ready to satiate his hunger, something unexpected occurred. A fast-moving object came hurtling toward him, knocking the bread out of his hands with lightning speed. As the stolen bread fell onto the grass, our hero was taken aback. He watched the spot where the bread should have landed, but it had mysteriously disappeared. This thief was quick and brazen, and our hero couldn't believe someone would be so bold as to steal his bread. He cast a judgmental gaze at the stranger and questioned how he dared to steal from him. However, the stranger paid no heed to our hero's inquiries. Instead, he greedily devoured the stolen bread, relishing its taste and exclaiming about its deliciousness. Our hero was determined to find out who this audacious thief was, and marveled at the game's intricacy, which even included beggars like him. An information window appeared above the stranger, but it identified him as an unknown man. This designation puzzled our hero, as NPCs, or non-playable characters, usually had specific roles and interactions within the game. They rarely acted without purpose. Seizing the opportunity, our hero decided to see where this encounter would lead. He surmised that the man might be hungry and offered him another loaf of bread. The stranger's face lit up with happiness, and he couldn't believe his luck. Our hero assured him that he could have as much bread as he wanted. The stranger approached him, taking the offered bread and revealing that it had been over 300 years since he had eaten in such a manner. Our hero was incredulous at the mention of 300 years, prompting further questions. The stranger explained that he would go to great lengths to ensure such a valuable item wasn't wasted. He expressed gratitude and wished to give our hero something in return for his kindness. Our hero's imagination ran wild with thoughts of receiving a powerful weapon, valuable equipment, or perhaps even a treasure map as a reward. However, the stranger handed him a small, unimpressive blue candy that resembled a pearl. The information window identified it as an unknown candy from an unknown man. Despite initial disappointment, our hero remained curious about the candy and suspected it might have hidden effects. Though common sense warned him that it could be a trap, he decided to give it a try. After all, he was still a novice player without the means to die and lose all his items and skills. The allure of potential benefits outweighed the risks, and he was determined to explore the effects of this mysterious candy for himself. As soon as our hero took the candy into his hands and examined it closely, he was struck by its unusual glow, casting an ethereal, otherworldly light that danced across his palm. He watched in fascination as the candy cracked right down the middle, releasing a mesmerizing radiance that seemed to fill every nook and cranny of the surrounding space. It was as if the candy contained a universe within itself. Suddenly, a peculiar sensation overcame him, and his vision blurred. His eyes rolled back, and he felt himself slipping into a strange and vivid dream. Unbeknownst to him, his unconscious body slowly descended onto the soft, emerald grass at the center of a tranquil clearing. The stranger who had given him the enigmatic candy observed this turn of events with an air of anticipation. His demeanor shifted from that of a common beggar to someone with hidden depths. He quietly bid farewell to the hero, a glimmer of hope in his eyes that they might meet again someday. Our hero, meanwhile, found himself in the midst of a grand, spacious hall. The table before him was adorned with a lavish spread of exquisite dishes and an abundance of fresh, tantalizing fruits. The aroma that wafted through the air was nothing short of divine. The setting resembled a royal banquet, complete with flickering candles that bathed everything in a warm, inviting glow. It all appeared fresh and piping hot, as if it had just been prepared for a feast of kings. With eager anticipation, he reached out to touch the sumptuous food. However, to his surprise, his fingers passed right through it, as if the entire spread were an illusion. The food, while visually enticing, was intangible, leaving him bewildered and hungry. Behind him, the beggar from earlier had transformed into a skilled chef, his focus locked onto something sizzling and aromatic. Curiosity piqued. Our hero turned to investigate the source of the commotion. He couldn't believe his eyes when he realized that the beggar had become a culinary master. It was as if the man had been hiding his true talents all along. As he watched the beggar chef at work, he sensed that the man was waiting for someone or something. The silence was broken when the beggar spoke, his voice carrying an air of profound wisdom. He spoke of countless sunsets and seasons changing, suggesting the passage of time in a way that transcended ordinary understanding. It was as though he had witnessed the ebb and flow of centuries. Abruptly, the beggar ceased his cooking and fixed his gaze upon our protagonist with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. The beggar's eyes shone with a brilliant light, and within them our hero could once again perceive the vast expanse of infinite space. It was as if the cosmos itself resided within the beggar's gaze. Caught in this mesmerizing gaze, our hero snapped out of his peculiar dream. He awoke to find that it was now night in the clearing. The transition from the dream world to reality left him with a throbbing headache, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the candy had opened a door to something far beyond his comprehension. The encounter with the beggar and the strange dream had left him with more questions than answers, and he couldn't help but wonder if their paths would cross again in the future. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out at Daremni Cosmic 512, who commented, "Manhwa, you ask? Second coming of gluttony. I started with manhwa, and then reread as novel. On our wasted away for 40 years video. Thanks for commenting." As our hero pondered the surreal events that had unfolded, he found himself questioning the nature of his experiences. Were they merely a vivid dream, or had he stumbled upon a hidden reality within the game world? His doubts were swiftly dispelled when an information window materialized before him, delivering an astonishing revelation. The window informed him that he had obtained a hidden class called Heavenly Gourmet. The very existence of hidden classes in the game had been a well-kept secret until now. With this newfound class came a set of intriguing abilities. The first was Heavenly Palace, a passive skill that allowed him to discern and appreciate the hidden flavors of food like never before. Then there was Heavenly Grind, which increased the chances of obtaining high-quality items and ingredients, turning mundane gameplay into a thrilling adventure. But the most astonishing revelation came in the form of an active skill called Heavenly Cooking. This skill granted him the ability to create extraordinary dishes that outperformed ordinary food in both effectiveness and unique effects. It was a game changer for our hero, turning his previously mundane concerns about hunger and food mechanics into a central aspect of his gameplay. The surprises didn't end there. Another window appeared, presenting him with a class quest that would redefine his role in the game. His primary mission now was to uncover the truth about the enigmatic Gourmet King. This legend had captivated the imaginations of players across the world of Fate, but its origin and veracity remained shrouded in mystery. Only the hero, who now held the title of Heavenly Gourmet, was deemed capable of solving this enigma. The system issued a cryptic warning, emphasizing that the consequences of unveiling the truth behind the Gourmet King legend were unpredictable. However, it was certain that the fate of the entire world of Fate hung in the balance, with our hero as its unlikely champion. Despite the grandiose nature of his newfound role, our hero remained focused on the practical aspects that truly concerned him, the difficulty of the quest and the rewards it promised. The rewards were described as immeasurable, a phrase that sent shivers down his spine. Did this mean that the entire history of the Fate world rested in his hands? All X did was farm a bit more, but unbeknownst to him, a yellow-haired priest saw him from afar. Returning to the game from his introspective reverie, our protagonist found himself once again in the same location where he had initially materialized, sword in hand. His first order of business was to assess his situation. The formidable buffalo before him boasted a level exceeding 20, while his own level remained at a mere 18. In order to effectively confront such a high-level monster, it became evident that he needed to form or join a group of fellow adventurers. Standing before the imposing and infuriated bull, its nostrils steaming with rage, our hero couldn't help but feel a rush of determination. He decided to discard any reservations about the class quest, hidden classes, or even the mysterious beggar who had set this extraordinary chain of events in motion. For now, his focus was entirely on the impending battle and the challenge that lay ahead. As our hero contemplated the unusual turn of events and the incredible power bestowed upon him by his heavenly gourmet class, a mischievous smile played upon his lips. He couldn't help but wonder what the bull before him tasted like. Having only hunted a mere 10 monsters thus far, he felt a sense of culinary adventure tinged with a hint of excitement. Without further ado, he decided to continue the fight. With a burst of adrenaline, he leaped high into the air, his sword poised for a strike. In a resounding cry of, "Let's eat!" he lunged at the unsuspecting bull. The next moment, his blade landed a critical blow, causing the massive creature to crumble into pieces before him. As the bull's remnants scattered across the clearing, the familiar system notifications chimed in. They announced that he had not only gained valuable experience, but also obtained meat from the defeated bull. Grinning from ear to ear, he picked up one of the meaty pieces and looked at it. With evident delight, he took a hearty bite and swallowed it down. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps. Much to his astonishment, the system immediately reported that the juiciness of the bull meat had been absorbed by his body. What caught his attention even more was the revelation of a hidden flavor, aptly named bull meat. But the real surprise came when he realized that his strength had increased by a remarkable 10 points after consuming the bull's meat. It was an unexpected boon that left him feeling both grateful and invigorated. Perusing his status window once again, he couldn't help but ponder the intentions of the game developers who had crafted such a unique hidden profession. He knew that achieving mastery in all of his abilities would take time and effort, but the extraordinary benefits made it a worthwhile pursuit. His musings were abruptly interrupted by a voice calling out to him. Turning around, he laid eyes upon a yellow-haired individual who greeted him with genuine excitement. The newcomer introduced himself as Dallas, a priest, and expressed his admiration for the protagonist's hunting prowess. While our hero felt a tinge of wariness at this sudden encounter, something about Dallas's demeanor intrigued him. Deciding to take a chance on this unexpected acquaintance, he returned the smile and thanked Dallas for the compliment. As the two struck up a conversation, our hero couldn't help but wonder what adventures and challenges awaited him in the company of this newfound friend, and how their paths might intertwine in the vast world of fate. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is the best fantasy food ingredient? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. Upon being asked if he needed anything, our protagonist considered the offer thoughtfully. Dallas had mentioned his desire to speak with him the day before, but circumstances had prevented their meeting. Seizing the opportunity to connect with a fellow player, our hero nodded in agreement. In the next moment, he received a message that Dallas had sent him a friend request, and he accepted it without hesitation. He recognized the potential benefits of teaming up with a priest, a class known for its valuable support skills. While priests often struggled with low attack power and leveling up on their own, became indispensable when chosen for the right skills and attributes. As a result, high-level priests were highly sought after for group play. Realizing that Dallas was seeking his assistance to level up, our hero had no reason to decline. With a warm smile, he agreed and suggested that they could hunt together during their next session. Dallas responded with happiness, expressing his gratitude for the offer. Dallas then revealed a unique skill he possessed, herb gathering. Raising his staff, the orb at its end emitted a vibrant green light that enveloped our hero. A peculiar sensation spread throughout his body, and a system window promptly informed him that his inventory had received a significant boost with a duration of 3 hours. Our hero was astonished by the sudden enhancement, his inventory now teeming with empty slots, which would undoubtedly prove beneficial for storing resources and items collected during their adventures. With this newfound advantage, our hero contemplated whether he truly needed to return to the city at that moment. Turning to Dallas, he inquired if there was any way he could be of assistance. The priest, taken aback by the unexpected offer, asked how our hero could help. In response, our protagonist retrieved a bullhorn from his inventory, a valuable item that could be used for various purposes. With a nonchalant tone, our protagonist assured Dallas that his request was quite simple. He only needed help carrying and collecting the bullhorns scattered around. Dallas, slightly puzzled by the seemingly unusual request, agreed to assist. Together, they proceeded further into the field. Standing next to the bull that had succumbed to his sword strike, our hero reminded himself that this was the final kill, marking a total of 100 monsters slain. In that very moment, the system delivered a message, promoting him to the rank of Fearless Adventurer. This new rank came with a 5% reduction in damage taken and a 5% increase in damage output when facing monsters of a higher level. A boon that, while not earth-shattering, would undoubtedly prove beneficial in future encounters. Observing the priest's surprise as he diligently collected materials, Dallas couldn't help but inquire about the purpose behind gathering so many bullhorns. In response, our hero contemplated that, while it may not be the intended use for the priest, it was a useful endeavor. He stored his sword in his inventory and clarified that this situation held no harm for him. In fact, it might even lead to a beneficial connection with Dallas in the future. As they made their way toward the city, both adventurers contemplated the rarity of their encounter. Dallas was determined not to let the opportunity pass to join forces with a skilled player who had shown kindness to a weaker class like his own. His fiery determination was so palpable that it even seemed to create an aura around him, leaving our hero with a faint sense of unease, as if something was lurking in the shadows behind him. Finally reaching the town, they stood on the verge of parting ways. Our protagonist expressed his gratitude to his new companion for the day's assistance, and Dallas reciprocated, offering to lend a hand whenever needed. With that, they said their farewells, and our hero headed toward the city's entrance. Upon entering the city, he immediately encountered a familiar face, the shopkeeper, Mr. Rubin, whose demeanor appeared somewhat disheartened. As he approached the counter, our hero greeted Mr. Rubin and informed him that he had come to sell some items. Noticing the shopkeeper's melancholic mood, he asked what was troubling him, mentioning the noticeable change in his usual disposition. Mr. Rubin lowered his head and clenched his hand into a fist, attempting to dismiss any concerns. He replied in a subdued tone that nothing was amiss, but his demeanor suggested otherwise. Our hero couldn't help but feel that there was more to the shopkeeper's melancholy than met the eye, and he resolved to find out what was truly bothering him. After a momentary pause, Mr. Rubin raised his head and looked directly at our protagonist, a glint of urgency in his eyes. He asked if he could have some of the hero's time, as he had something crucial to share. Our hero nodded and followed Mr. Rubin into the living room of his home. Taking a seat at the table, curiosity piqued, our hero turned to the shopkeeper, who appeared visibly distressed, and inquired about the secret he wished to reveal. Mr. Rubin explained that he was about to disclose a secret that only our hero would know. With a heavy heart, he began to lay out his problem. It began with the top management of his store imposing unreasonable delivery terms, including rare items like the deerskin he had acquired in his previous dealings. This time, the required item was beyond his means to obtain, and the deadline was today. Failure to meet these demands would likely result in the closure of his shop. He looked at our hero, emphasizing that Narville was primarily a town for beginners, and most adventurers swiftly moved on to more challenging hunting grounds. As a result, powerful Narville oxen went untouched, and no player had ever gathered 100 ox horns in such a short time. Moved by Mr. Rubin's desperate situation, our hero reached into his inventory and placed an ox horn on the table. Inquiring if this was the type of horn he needed, the shopkeeper was astounded, unable to believe his eyes. Our hero confirmed that he possessed 100 of these horns. With a warm smile, he expressed his gratitude to Mr. Rubin and vowed to be forever indebted to him. Overwhelmed with joy and tears in his eyes, Mr. Rubin sincerely thanked our protagonist, stating that the horns would save his store. Our hero replied, still smiling, that he didn't want to see the shop close down. In that moment, the system sent a message, indicating that our hero's reputation had increased by 10 points. Mr. Rubin continued to express his gratitude, promising to pay the maximum price for our hero's goods in the future. He also pledged to share the latest information with him. The prospect of obtaining valuable information piqued our hero's interest, especially considering his quest to defeat the traitors who had wronged him. He thanked the shopkeeper for his generous offer and bade him farewell, assuring that they would cross paths again. Leaving Mr. Rubin's home, our protagonist arrived at the central square of the city. Here, a bustling restaurant stood. Amidst the culinary chaos, a large, middle-aged man with golden hair and a blue apron caught our hero's attention, awaiting his next adventure in this vibrant city. The man standing before our protagonist turned out to be none other than the owner of Kalen's restaurant, a renowned chef in Narville. With a sense of pride and a hint of authority, he asked if our hero wanted to learn cooking from him. Our protagonist replied with resolute determination, affirming that he did indeed wish to learn from the best chef in Narville, as he had heard from Mr. Rubin's store. With his hands folded in front of him, our hero turned to Mr. Rubin and inquired if he knew of any other good chefs in town. Mr. Rubin reluctantly admitted that he knew of one, but cautioned that this particular chef was incredibly eccentric, making it nearly impossible for ordinary individuals to converse with him. Despite his unconventional demeanor, he remained the finest cook in all of Narville. Concerned that our protagonist might be promptly rejected by the eccentric chef, Mr. Rubin offered to write him a letter of recommendation. This gesture demonstrated his support for our hero's culinary ambitions. Turning his attention back to the chef, our protagonist introduced himself. However, Kalen, the chef, responded with a disdainful tone, questioning our hero's purpose. He asserted that he had no interest in teaching someone to cook normal food, dismissing the everyday fare as garbage. This cold reception initially disheartened our hero, as Callan's demeanor was even harsher than expected. Nevertheless, our protagonist was undeterred, recognizing that this was his only chance to learn from the renowned chef. He removed his shoulder pad and humbly requested an opportunity to prove himself worthy. He brimmed with confidence in his cooking skills, ready to demonstrate everything he had learned during his 2 years of working at the restaurant. Ignoring Kalen's annoyed words and his initial reluctance, our hero took his place in front of the table. He carefully inspected the unusual ingredients, noting their differences from those in the real world. His task was to create a dish by combining similar elements. First, he decided to use milk to mitigate the raw meat's scent. The next step involved evenly coating the meat in a mixture of flour and eggs. Finally, he planned to fry the concoction in oil at a moderate temperature of 170 degrees C. With determination in his eyes, our hero embarked on this culinary challenge, eager to impress Kalen and earn the chance to learn from the renowned chef of Narville. Callan, the seasoned chef, watched with irritation as our protagonist continued to prepare the dish. To him, it appeared to be nothing more than ordinary fried food. However, our hero remained undaunted, confident that Callan's opinion would change once he added the extraordinary ingredient that would elevate the dish to another level. This unique component, known as Heavenly Touch, was not something found in the real world. Behind our protagonist, the ethereal image of the hermit he had encountered earlier materialized. With a determined focus, he activated the Heavenly Touch skill, and the dish suddenly emitted a radiant, golden light. As he worked, his glowing golden eyes followed the process, wondering if he was the only one who could perceive the extraordinary transformation. Deciding not to dwell on it, he continued to move his hands with precision and grace, taking full advantage of the skill's capabilities. With a final sweeping motion, the dish glowed even brighter, signaling the completion of his culinary creation. In front of Kalen, a bowl of golden chicken legs appeared, exuding a mouth-watering aroma, showcasing a dish unlike any other. The other cooks in the restaurant were shocked and mesmerized by this unfamiliar culinary spectacle, their mouths watering uncontrollably. Observing their reactions with a contented smile, our hero reminded himself that such a response was expected, considering the dish had been prepared with the Heavenly Touch. Even Kalon, who had harbored skepticism throughout, couldn't help but find the dish intriguing. He noted that it looked unusual, his hand thoughtfully resting on his chin as he contemplated it. He acknowledged that our hero had indeed presented an interesting dish, but emphasized that the only way to truly assess it was to taste it. Without hesitation, Kalen took a bite of the golden chicken legs. In that very moment, his eyes widened in astonishment. Memories flooded his mind, reminiscent of the divine food he had tasted only once before. The sensations and emotions he had experienced on that occasion were indelibly etched into his memory. The sudden change in Kalen's behavior left the restaurant employees bewildered, and they started to inquire about his well-being. Tears streaming down Kalon's face surprised those who had known him for a long time, as they had never seen him cry before. He brusquely ordered everyone to be silent, his irritation palpable, and announced that they would be closing early that day, an unprecedented decision for Kalen's restaurant. Seated at a table across from our protagonist, Callan, the chef, addressed him directly, asking if his name was X. Our hero confirmed his identity, and an awkward silence settled over the table. After a brief pause, Kalen inquired if our hero had ever heard of the Gourmet King. This question puzzled our protagonist for a moment, but after some reflection, he recalled having heard of the legendary figure. Kalen proceeded to explain that the Gourmet King was said to have appeared when the kingdom of Arba was founded, leaving behind a remarkable legend. However, one day, he vanished without a trace. Hearing this, our hero couldn't help but wonder if the old hermit he had encountered earlier was, in fact, the Gourmet King himself. Callan continued, revealing that he could sense the Gourmet King's touch in his own food, though it was likely due to the widespread dissemination of his recipes. Our hero merely smiled in response, recognizing the parallels between Callan's situation and his own experiences in his previous line of work. Taking a sip from his glass and adopting a somber expression, Callan expressed his belief that those who knew the Gourmet King's recipes should also be acquainted with his story. He began to recount the history, sharing that 300 years ago, it was the Gourmet King who had founded the kingdom of Arba. These words had such an impact on our hero that he jumped up from the table in astonishment. Callan proceeded to explain that, as a traveler, the Gourmet King had come to the barren plains of Arba, where nothing had existed at the time. Witnessing the natural beauty and fertility of the land, he made the momentous decision to establish a kingdom for his people, naming it the Kingdom of Arba. This revelation left our hero intrigued and eager to learn more about the Gourmet King's history and the legacy he had left behind in the Kingdom of Arba. In accordance with his grand vision, this kingdom was destined to be an idyllic haven for his family and the people he cherished most. The former king had nurtured dreams of prosperity and harmony, where every citizen would revel in the joys of life and his lineage would flourish through generations. However, fate had different plans, as the king's sudden disappearance shattered these dreams like fragile glass. In the blink of an eye, the once empty throne was usurped by Lars Luren, the right hand of the enigmatic and renowned Gourmet King. With the reins of power now firmly within his grasp, Lars made a chilling decision that sent tremors through the kingdom. He ordered the execution of all the devoted servants who had faithfully served the vanished monarch. Amidst the turmoil, a figure emerged, one who would soon become an unexpected protagonist in this unfolding drama. A man known simply as X stood in the shadows, observing the swift and ruthless ascension of Lars Luren. X couldn't help but be awed by the Gourmet King's incredible ability to almost single-handedly establish an entire kingdom. The kingdom's history and the enigma surrounding the Gourmet King deeply intrigued him. As X contemplated his role in these unfolding events, he couldn't help but question why such an extraordinary individual had entrusted him with the unique powers he now possessed. Clenching his hand into a fist, he grappled with the weight of responsibility. Was it his duty to restore the kingdom to its former glory and safeguard its precious culinary heritage? Did the Gourmet King truly believe in him to that extent? Yet X couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling that everything about this situation seemed oddly irregular. He turned his gaze toward Callan, the man who had introduced him to this enigmatic world. In the depths of his thoughts, X wondered if Callan held the key to unraveling the mystery surrounding the Gourmet King. Could Callan possess knowledge not only of the king's history, but also of his treasured recipes? Fueled by curiosity and the need for answers, X decided that the time for action had come. He turned to Chief Callan, whose eyebrows furrowed in skepticism at X's unbelievable claims. Callan demanded an explanation, prompting X to reveal the astonishing truth. He was, in fact, a descendant of the Gourmet King. Callan's disbelief was palpable, and he challenged X to provide proof of this bold assertion. Without hesitation, X pointed to a nearby table and instructed Callan that he needed to substantiate his claim. With the ease of a seasoned chef, Callan selected a knife and started to prepare a dish. He demonstrated his masterful culinary skills with each precise movement, his hands a blur of activity. As the dish cooked over the fire, Callan explained that if X truly carried the Gourmet King's bloodline, he would be able to discern the secret essence of the dish with a single taste. Placing a tantalizing dish before X, it emitted a mouth-watering aroma and looked irresistible. Callan revealed that this was the very dish that X's grandfather had once served to the Gourmet King himself many years ago. With a sense of anticipation, X took a spoonful of the delectable food and brought it to his lips. As the flavors danced on his palate, he was left in awe of the dish's exquisite taste. In that moment, the system within him sprung to life, sending a notification that a hidden flavor memory stew had been detected in the food. Even more astonishingly, the experience embedded within the memory stew was absorbed into his body. A notification window materialized before X, bearing incredible news. He had obtained the Kamar the Shield ability, a skill that opened the doors to mastering the art of shield techniques. With this newfound power, X could deflect a shield strike with unparalleled proficiency, diminishing the force of the opponent's blow by a substantial 30%. In that single moment, as X savored the flavors of his legacy and embraced his newfound abilities, he understood that he now held the key to unraveling the mysteries of the Gourmet King and restoring the kingdom to its former glory. With determination burning in his heart, he was prepared to embark on a journey filled with culinary adventures, secret recipes, and the weight of his lineage on his shoulders. After unlocking the Kamar the Shield ability, X found himself in possession of newfound power. When attacking monsters with his shield, there was now a remarkable 50% chance of victory. What was even more intriguing was that his attack power was directly linked to his defense whenever he wielded a shield. This symbiotic relationship between offense and defense was a revelation that left X both surprised and elated. With these abilities in his arsenal, X couldn't help but ponder the significance of his newfound connection to the Gourmet King. Intrigued and eager for answers, he turned to Kalen, the man who had just provided him with a tangible link to his ancestry. X inquired if his great-grandfather had ever been known as Kamar the Shield. The moment those words left his lips, Kalen's excitement was palpable. He exclaimed with fervor, confirming that X's great-grandfather had indeed been known by that very name. Kalan marveled at how X had uncovered this truth through the simple act of tasting the stew. He shared that his own great-grandfather had passed down stories of the Gourmet King, highlighting that the king possessed an uncanny ability to discern profound truths by savoring the flavors of a dish. Kalen's jubilation was evident as he eagerly clasped X's hand, expressing his immense joy that, after 3 centuries, a successor to the Gourmet King had finally emerged. The weight of destiny and the culinary legacy of his lineage now rested firmly on X's shoulders. As Kalan's excitement settled into a more composed demeanor, X wasted no time in making a request. He asked Kalan if he could teach him the elusive recipe he had inherited from the Gourmet King. However, Kalan's response was tempered with a sense of realism. He explained that the full recipe was a culinary masterpiece of unparalleled complexity, with one critical caveat: it required a key ingredient that was notoriously difficult to obtain. The challenge lay in procuring the meat of a black cave bear, a formidable creature that reigned as the main boss in the treacherous northern zone. The mere mention of this creature sent shivers down the spines of seasoned adventurers, as it was known for its incredible strength and ferocity. Understanding the gravity of X's quest, Kalan knew that this would be a perilous mission. Without hesitation, he equipped X with a formidable stormtrooper armor, a symbol of protection and strength. He assured X that this armor would provide vital defense during his impending battles, but Kalen's generosity didn't stop there. He handed X a precious bottle of potion that emanated a radiant and expensive-looking glow. The magical elixir held the promise of healing and restoration, a valuable asset for any adventurer. As X accepted these gifts and prepared to embark on his quest to obtain the elusive black cave bear meat, gratitude swelled within him. He marveled at how easily he had acquired such valuable equipment and resources, but he also knew that the real challenges lay ahead. With determination in his heart and a newfound sense of purpose, X set forth, ready to face the dangers of the northern zone and unlock the secrets of the Gourmet King's legendary recipe. With the flame-imbued Lower Flames Essence potion in hand, X was given a powerful tool to aid him in his upcoming quest. A system window materialized before him, offering a detailed explanation of the potion's properties. The Lower Flames Essence had the remarkable ability to infuse equipment with the essence of the fire element. This infusion granted his gear the ability to inflict low-level fire damage on his adversaries. It was a timely boon, considering the frigid north was inhabited by monsters resistant to the cold, but vulnerable to fire. Kalan, ever the motivator, added that if X could successfully hunt the elusive black cave bear and obtain its meat, he would teach him the coveted Gourmet King's recipe. Their culinary partnership would bring them closer to achieving Kalan's lifelong dream. A new system window appeared, unveiling a task known as Kalen's Dream. The task outlined Kalen's aspiration to complete the Gourmet King's recipe, an accomplishment he couldn't achieve due to his limited combat abilities. X's mission was clear: to help Kalen realize his dream. In return, he would be rewarded with a VIP pass to Kalen's restaurant. With resolve in his heart, X activated the Lower Flames Essence potion, allowing the fiery essence to permeate his equipment. He clenched his fist, affirming his determination to fulfill Kalen's dream and tackle the challenges that lay ahead. Venturing into the northern snowy fields, X was bundled up in a long cloak, his breath forming visible plumes in the freezing air. He couldn't help but grumble about the intense cold, fully aware that Kalen's equipment and the fire essence were the only things making this journey bearable. As he moved through the snow-covered terrain, he encountered a white wolf. Quick to react, he retrieved his sword from his inventory. He knew that without Kalan's equipment and the fire essence, he would have struggled against the formidable creatures inhabiting this harsh environment. With a swift and deadly swing, X beheaded the wolf, earning a satisfying notification from the system that his experience had increased. Checking his status window, X was astonished to see his level had reached 34. It sparked a glimmer of hope that he might stand a chance against the formidable black cave bear, especially if he could land a critical hit. However, his thoughts were abruptly interrupted by the desperate cries for help echoing through the snowy expanse. Turning toward the source of the distress, X saw a small figure, a child, being pursued at high speed by a menacing white wolf. As he approached, it became clear that the child was terrified, screaming in fear and lacking the strength to fend off the wolf's relentless pursuit. The boy's desperate cries filled the air as he closed his eyes, bracing for the wolf's attack. Yet in a surprising turn of events, the wolf's jaws missed their mark, failing to reach the boy. With a swift and precise strike, X's sword severed the white wolf's neck, and the lifeless creature crumpled to the ground. As X stood before the bewildered and trembling boy, his sword in hand, he calmly inquired if the young lad was all right. Stuttering and wide-eyed, the boy gazed at the wolf's lifeless form, which had already begun to fade into nothingness. When his wits returned, the boy profusely thanked X, expressing that he owed his life to the stranger's timely intervention. Introducing himself as Ron Tyler, the eldest son of the prestigious Tyler family of Veneta, the boy's words left X greatly surprised. In this world, every individual possessed their own unique status, and it wasn't solely the realm of royal tasks and noble NPCs that garnered attention. Even the common folk could offer substantial rewards in line with their status. X couldn't help but smile as he introduced himself as X, the protagonist of this unfolding story. He expressed his pleasure at meeting Ron. Wrapped snugly in his cloak against the biting cold, Ron extended an invitation to X. He offered to host X at the Tyler mansion for a while and share more about their family's situation, albeit with the caveat that the Tyler family's pride prevented them from discussing such matters openly. Intrigued by Ron's offer, and with time to spare in his quest for a new recipe, X readily agreed and urged Ron to lead the way. The two of them eventually arrived at the Tyler mansion, which appeared to be in a state of abandonment and disrepair. As they traversed a similarly unkempt corridor, its walls marred by cracks, X couldn't help but wonder if this was the abode of nobles. They passed by a portrait of a gray-haired, middle-aged man in formal attire, whom Ron referred to as his father. Ron's casual comment about returning home to his sick mother and his little sister painted a somber picture. Intrigued by the situation and compelled by his desire to help, X asked Ron if he could use their kitchen. Ron was initially taken aback by the request, but eventually consented. In no time, X took command of the kitchen, and Ron watched with a mix of awe and hunger as the protagonist prepared food, skillfully stirring and roasting the ingredients over an open flame. The tantalizing aroma that filled the air promised a hearty and warm meal for the Tyler family, a welcome respite in their difficult circumstances. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out at Supreme Decay, who commented, "I think the most op ability for a Manhwa is either future sight or copying abilities on our SSS Rank Hunter video. Thanks for commenting." As X took charge of the modest kitchen, he reassured everyone that the meal wouldn't take long to prepare, given the limited ingredients available. Once the food was ready, they gathered around the table where X had arranged the dishes. With a warm smile, X suggested they start eating, expressing his desire to learn more about his hosts. He introduced himself as a renowned gourmet, hoping to engage in conversation. However, X's words fell on deaf ears, as everyone at the table was entirely engrossed in savoring the food he had prepared. Within a matter of minutes, the pot that had held the meal was emptied, and X couldn't help but realize just how starved Ron and his family had been. Their voracious appetite spoke volumes about their days of hunger. Observing the satisfied expressions on their faces, X concluded that they must have endured severe deprivation in recent times. After a brief pause, Ron finally found his voice and expressed his disbelief at serving such a distinguished guest. He went on to thank X profusely for the delicious meal and pledged on his family's honor that he would never forget this act of kindness. X graciously acknowledged Ron's gratitude, stating that he was delighted they had enjoyed the meal. The little girl, still holding her spoon with a joyful smile, chimed in, promising that she too would never forget X because his food was incredibly tasty. X couldn't help but smile warmly in response to her genuine appreciation. Ron then mentioned that their mother was equally grateful for the delicious meal, to which X modestly downplayed his culinary skills, stating that there was nothing particularly special about his cooking. With the pleasantries exchanged, Ron assumed a more serious tone. He explained that before delving into the matter at hand, he wanted to share the reason behind the Tyler family's dire circumstances. He began by recounting the family's long-standing connection to the cold northern mountains, where their mansion was located. Ron disclosed that their mansion was intricately linked to a notorious dungeon known as the Graveyard of Strange Branches. This dungeon was teeming with dangerous monsters, but the Tyler family had clung to a generations-old belief. It was said that deep within the dungeon lay a hidden treasure. Ron's father, fervently believing in this legend, had assembled a formidable squad to venture into the depths of the dungeon. They spared no expense, hiring mercenaries and investing vast sums of money in their equipment. Decades were dedicated to preparation and countless battles against the monsters within. However, despite the number of monsters they had slain and the floors they had traversed, they found nothing of value. What made it all the more baffling was that the monsters within the dungeon didn't drop the usual accessories or loot. As a result of their relentless efforts, both in terms of energy and resources, the Tyler family eventually fell into disrepair, their once stately mansion now a shadow of its former self. Ron continued his tale, revealing that their father had eventually perished during one of the ill-fated dungeon raids. Despite his demise, Ron was determined to prove that the legends surrounding the Tyler family were not mere falsehoods, and his father's faith in those legends had not been misplaced. He turned to X and earnestly asked for his assistance in exploring the dungeon once more. As Ron made his request, a system window materialized before X, presenting a mission titled Legend of the Tyler Family. The mission's conditions were straightforward. Explore the dungeon with a difficulty rating of C. The reward, though not particularly impressive, was a trusted relationship with the Tyler household. Despite the somewhat lackluster reward, X couldn't help but smile, recognizing the value of the experience he would gain from traversing the dungeon alone. Without hesitation, he agreed to assist Ron in this endeavor. Descending into the dungeon, X contemplated the differences between this game and his previous experiences. The vastness of the map and the rarity of hidden dungeons made the challenge much more substantial. Furthermore, dungeons were typically monopolized by different guilds, making it exceptionally challenging to enter one independently. The fact that he had stumbled upon a hidden dungeon was an incredible stroke of luck. Suddenly, behind X, a skeletal figure wearing a helmet appeared. Swiftly and efficiently, X severed the skeleton's head, recognizing that even the entrance to the dungeon was not devoid of dangers. As the skeletal remains dissolved, the system notified X of his increased level, far more than he typically gained from battles outside the dungeon. However, there was no time to dwell on this, and he pressed forward, mindful of the hunger gnawing at him. After 5 hours of navigating the dungeon's twists and turns, X finally reached the Graveyard of Strange Branches. This monstrous entity resembled a grotesque version of Groot and possessed formidable magical abilities. It unleashed a torrent of magic attacks at X, who effortlessly blocked them with his trusty shield, taking advantage of the 30% protection it offered. Undeterred by the boss's fury, X counterattacked with golden-hued eyes ablaze. Swinging his sword above him, he aimed for a decisive blow. As the blade connected, brilliant golden streaks of light illuminated the boss's body, signaling victory. The defeated boss dissolved, and X received notifications of leveling up and clearing the dungeon. Standing before the crater left by the fallen monster, another notification appeared, declaring him the Solo Clearer. This title increased all of X's stats by 5% and reduced damage by 10% as long as he ventured through dungeons alone. X acknowledged that this title would be invaluable for future solo dungeon endeavors. However, despite defeating the boss and clearing the dungeon, X had not yet discovered any treasure or conclusive evidence to validate the legend. An idea sparked in his mind, and he crouched down to use the Heavenly Grind skill. To his surprise, the system reported that he had found an item, the Branch of Pure Spirit. This unique branch could create a holy flame that ignited the spirit and lasted semi-permanently. Curious about the branch's properties, X turned his attention to a nearby wall, illuminating it with the holy flame. The wall began to glow in certain areas, piquing his interest. As he approached, a sign materialized, indicating that the sacred flame had started to react to the darkness, hinting at a hidden secret awaiting discovery. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.